All right. Well, thank you again for joining the first session of the Apprenticeship Illinois Lunch and Learn session for 2025. Hope that your new year is off to a good start. Today, we'll be hearing from LWIA Region 1 on promising practices in their area. Before we dive into the presentation, I just want to go over a few housekeeping notes to ensure a smooth experience for all attendees. First, note that this webinar will be recorded and posted on the Apprenticeship Illinois website later this week. We also encourage you to stay on mute to minimize distractions during the presentation. If you do have any questions during the presentation, feel free to enter them into the chat, and we'll do our best to address those questions at the end of the webinar as time allows. Lastly, there will be a survey after the webinar concludes, and we would definitely appreciate your feedback to help us improve future webinars and let us know if today's content was helpful to your work. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nate Carlson. I'm the Technical Assistance Director for the Apprenticeship Illinois program. And today you're going to hear from Sarah Espelin, who's one of our all-star regional apprenticeship specialists. Apprenticeship specialists' primary role is to create new apprenticeship programs, registered apprenticeship programs for the state of Illinois. And they complete all of the necessary registration paperwork on behalf of employers to create a simple, streamlined process. They conduct in-person and virtual outreach. They receive and pursue the referrals we receive to our incredible apprenticeshipillinois.com site, and they connect employers to other important partners and services to help ensure the success of their program. So if you'd like to connect with an apprenticeship specialist in your area to find out how you can partner on developing and building new apprenticeship programs, please visit apprenticeshipillinois.com and click on Workforce Partners. And without further ado, I will hand it over to Sarah.
Thank you so much, Nate. Thank you, Jordan. Hello, everyone. I am Sarah Espelin, and I am the Apprenticeship Specialist for Lake County Workforce Development. I started my path in apprenticeship when I was working for the Idaho Department of Labor. I served with them for over 14 years. And during that time, I worked in a job center. I managed some unemployment insurance. I did trade and all the programs in Workforce Investment Act, now WIOA. And at the end of my career there, we were doing mobile services. I had an opportunity to meet with their navigator. And Idaho launched their initiative. It was very new, and many of us hadn't heard about apprenticeship in the workforce world. So I was lucky enough to join forces and help her find businesses in the rural areas that might be interested in registering new programs. And it was at that time when I learned what one of the first projects was for a brewery, and they were trying to register a brewmaster. Up until that point, I didn't realize it could be outside of the trades. I grew up in a union family with my dad as a laborer and a mason, so I really hadn't thought outside the box yet that apprenticeships could be used in other areas, and that was my big aha moment. So a few years ago, when I moved back to Illinois, I did work in the corporate world for a while, but I was really missing my purpose. And I was very lucky to find the opportunity. The business services team with Lake County Workforce Development had an opening, and I joined the team. When the apprenticeship specialist position had an opening, I was ready for that challenge. So that's how I got to this point. LWIA 1 is the top right corner of our state. You'll see us bordering Wisconsin, and it includes 52 incorporated cities and villages. We have our top industries of manufacturing, professional services, retail, government, education, and health services. And there's our business service team. So we are led out by our manager, Antonio Garcia. Our project lead is Jeff Hubert. You see me there covering apprenticeships. And then our Salesforce expert is Uma Subramanian. We have an account executive, Rob Linderman, who handles our youth and government, other businesses. And Omar Ramirez is leading out our manufacturing. So I'm very grateful to have the support of that team. Jennifer Serino is our director, and we might hear from her later on the call. If there's any questions for her as well, we'll be able to answer those in the chat at the end. this is our value proposition. So this one-page document, two-sided in Spanish on the back side, is what we really use as our initial communications with businesses. There's a QR code for you to get a copy of this flyer, but it's sort of broken into 3 different pillars. You'll see one on workforce solutions, one on workforce training, and one on the workforce ecosystem. When we talk with businesses about our workforce solutions, we're explaining how we can do job postings, provide labor market information, really assist with job fairs, things that we would help with any business. We also talk about the apprenticeship opportunities if we follow it down the line there. Our workforce training section covers our incumbent worker training, work experiences, and on-the-job training contracts. And then the ecosystem allows us to talk about our different partners with the College of Lake County, the Illinois Department of Employment Security, the Lake County Regional Office of Education, and there are others. So it's just a really easy guide that keeps us on track. When we're talking to employers, I can send it in an email. I'll pull it up on my screen sometimes when we're having those initial meetings. So it's just a really good one-pager to share. So apprenticeship really can be hard to explain when you're having those first engagements, right? I really see 2 different kinds of meetings. There's those that we've already been introduced to. They're familiar with who we are and the services we provide, perhaps even identified an occupation that they want to register. And then there are those employers that we're targeting who don't have any idea what our services are. For this slide, I'm focusing on the employer who we really do have a connection. The initial meeting or emails already happened. We know what the company is, what the opportunity for which occupation. And this is where we would do the pitch, right? So I'm going to want to listen to them first and really hear what they have to say about what their needs are. And then I would have something along the lines of, I heard that you're having difficulty hiring enough trained staff to meet your needs, so I brought this report. I want to share with you, showing you some of the trends and the industry wages for new hires in Lake County. And then we can explore registering an apprenticeship program for your business. If you invest to train the new staff with the program that you get to design, you could see an ROI of $1.47 for every dollar invested. Registered apprenticeships combine on-the-job training with mentorship and related coursework. And studies have shown that apprentices have over a 90% retention over the other employees. I have an example of some of the paperwork required that we could use as a template, and I would be happy to help you complete that paperwork for registration. So those are like really short. It asks to just give your pitch. And of course, the employers have a lot of questions typically, but if you come prepared with some of those occupations or standards already ahead of time, it makes it a lot easier to ease the worry of the paperwork. And then that last bullet is just to remind me that sometimes it's another service. Maybe they really are needing something that's not registered apprenticeship, and that's okay too. We just have to make sure that we're connecting them to the right people that can give them what they need. So how I'm getting leads right now, our business services team, we have weekly staff meetings. So every week, in communication with the team that I introduced earlier, often we have opportunities to go together, where we'll be in person at employers' businesses, maybe virtually on the computer. But going with any of the members on my team really has been the way I've gotten the most leads so far. We've also got a very active board. The Lake County Workforce Development Board has quarterly meetings, lots of subcommittee meetings as well. And many of our board members have employers who are supporting our initiatives. They have active job postings. They're using the work experience program. They're registering apprenticeship programs. And all of that engagement fosters referrals. So they'll tell their friends and their business partners, and then we'll get phone calls from them hearing that they had a plan or a project with someone else. And then, of course, our ecosystem, like I talked about before, our College of Lake County, the IDES, and Lake County Regional Office of Education. All of these partners together is what's made it possible for us to be successful in LWIA 1. Okay, so my favorite part is talking about our programs in progress. And the first one I wanted to talk about is one that I'm an active apprentice in. So the Youth Development Practitioner Apprenticeship, or YDPA, as we're calling it, was actually developed through a company called FHI 360, and they're under the National Institute for Work and Learning. This program was designed to help incumbent youth serving employees really upskill and get the fundamentals. There wasn't a structured college class or anything that we could see before this was created. So it was really exciting. We worked with different community-based organizations and youth serving agencies that had staff maybe as intake coordinators or activity director. Some of them are case managers. And we had 17 apprentices in January of 2024, and we're about to graduate at the end of January, so I'm super excited. We were able to provide incentives. So part of our grant dollars were specifically allocated for employer incentives, and we had these 6 that you see on the screen as expanding the FHI 360 program with signing those agreements. So the Boys and Girls Club of Lake County, the Community Works, Youth Conservation Corps, Business and Career Services, Kurt's Cafe, and Youth Build of Lake County all participated in the program, sending their employees through this apprenticeship. In our 2,000 hours of on-the-job training, we were able to use some of the hours we've already worked for the company. So many of us just had about a year, maybe 1,000 hours to finish. And then the 165 hours of related training, it's been covered in different ways. So definitely virtually, we would meet every other week in a class cohort. So we got to really review what we've learned, hear from our other apprentices about how they've been implementing what they learned in their work, but also building relationships. So all of us who serviced youth and have our own ideas about what there is available, we didn't know exactly some of the great things that the other programs were offering. So now we have support with each other. We have a group text where we're providing resources and referrals to each other. And just that familiarity of each entity and what they're doing now, it's really grown and expanded. I put on the screen kind of what we were learning. Those 9 areas are what our structured courses were about. I was also asked to speak with the Apprenticeship Professionals Learning Network last month, and there's a link to the recording where I talked a little bit about how it's changed how I feel about apprentices and when I'm speaking to employers. So pretty much the whole experience has allowed me the insight into how hard it is, right? When you're expected to keep up with your regular duties, but also complete an apprenticeship program. And the picture of us there in front of Lake Michigan was our midpoint certification. So we got together in person in January when we first started, in July in the middle, and then we're going to meet again for graduation. So I'm really looking forward to it. The other programs that we've been able to participate in, all different industries, right? So Lake County Housing Authority is one of our newer businesses. They expanded Youth Build's apprenticeship by hiring a maintenance apprentice, and we're supporting right now with OJT funds. TU Construction has registered 2 new programs, one for roofer and one for admin assistant. And right now I'm working on the eligibility for a new hire of a roofer apprentice to see if we can support with on-the-job training funds for that hire. Waukegan Public Schools, this is a big one. We've heard it across the state. There are a couple other programs, even working with Bloom Board. They got together and had already started the program. They were in communication with Blue Board when we got asked to join in conversation. So this year, we're going to be supporting the paraprofessionals that are going into the teacher apprenticeship. And we're able to use our incumbent worker training funds to support 11 of those paraprofessionals, helping pay tuition. So that'll be really fun to watch over the next year or two, how many more we can help support. Domney Tool and Stamping Company, they registered a program for their toolmaker apprentices. So we're supporting that program with on-the-job training funds. They've just hired a CNC setup technician apprentice. Then we have LMT Onsra, another manufacturer who registered a program for CNC tool, cutter grinder apprentices, and we're having good success with the incumbent worker training funds with them as well. So they have 10 apprentices that we're helping cover costs for tuition. Shore Acres, the golf course there registered a program for turf specialists. It's way more complicated than I understood. So they have an apprenticeship started. UCC Environmental, they registered a program for structural drafter. Legacy Healthcare, I'm still in communication, trying to get the LPN and the RN program set up there. Topside Marinas, she's got 2 different locations in Waukegan that we're trying to help with the mechanics program. So lots going on with programs in process and supporting. I did want to touch base on our work, earn, and learn work sites. So when I came to Lake County Workforce Development, before the grant came for apprenticeships, they had already started this model where they took cohorts of individuals in WIOA and found local employers and agencies that would be willing to take on a group. The individuals are getting paid while they're learning those new skills and upskilling, and many of them were able to get hired afterwards. So we've been able to work with Lake County Emergency Management, also the Lake County Health Department that's doing similar things with emergency management, Lake County Division of Transportation, and then 2 financial, Baxter Credit Union and Consumers Credit Union. And we're going to continue to support them as long as we have funds available, kind of on an annual basis with those cohorts. This slide talks about our partners. I can't emphasize enough really making those relationships. If you're new to your position or you haven't spent time yet learning who all these people are in your area, it will definitely benefit. So going to other people's meetings, reading the about me's on their website and trying to get even email conversations started is a great way to kind of reach out to them. I physically work out of our Lake County Job Center in Waukegan. So I am very familiar with all the services that we offer in our resource area. We definitely have a good connection and get leads for apprentices and for programs from our Job Center partners. The Lake County partners that we talked about, they are a great entity. We have an annual event where I've been able to meet many businesses. the College of Lake County, who we're working on a huge grant with CEDRA right now. We have lots of communication with even their apprenticeship programs. I'm sending a lot of people to the College of Lake County. The programs that they have in apprenticeship right now, not all of them are registered, but they have been building, and he's growing more and more programs every year. So I'm excited to continue that. And our regional office of education, we've been able to go into many high schools. You'll see the list on the screen there, and it's mock interviews, job fairs, career fairs, the Navigate 8 Lake County this year, all kinds of different activities where we're making sure we're bringing apprenticeship to the table and including it in all our conversations with youth. And then the local chambers of commerce. I've been able to speak at least one so far this quarter, and hopefully there'll be more. Our Small Business Development Center, I have another meeting tomorrow with our representatives there. They will include us in meetings when appropriate, and send referrals as well. And then lots of Lake County government departments. And I would say the top 3 ways that we're using grant funds or formula funding to support are those incentives to employers with the YDPA expansion, those on-the-job training contracts. Hopefully we'll see more as employers who've registered new programs find people to hire. And then the incumbent worker training dollars. It's been really fun to learn more about that program and be able to incorporate that when I'm talking to employers about how to really fund their apprenticeships. So when we got the assignment for this and the slide was asked, what's really the challenge faced? It's just the time. I can't emphasize enough how busy employers are, right? It's hard to get an in-person meeting. Sometimes that can take a couple weeks just to get on the calendar. It's hard once you get there because their time is limited and you have to really mold and shape what you're going to say in order to get everything across that you want, right? It's also hard to find the right person. So my example is probably with the legacy healthcare, that you don't always know how much they can relate to leadership and executive level, and getting that person prepared for those conversations is hard. I think the more stories we have to share as successes, the better it's going to be. I really want to have some start to finish. Some of the programs I talked about before, their apprentices are just starting, like YDPA, we're all just graduating. Once I have some completions and can talk to employers or even bring that success story employer along, I think it's really going to help to show they started at this time, they finished, and now we have, we're not refilling or having to constantly look for new hires in that area. I want to be able to bring those to the table. And I know it's going to come, so I look forward to that. I also talk about making sure that you are following things, just on all the different socials, anything about apprenticeship. I've seen all kinds of fun stuff just by looking at LinkedIn and different Facebook posts from our different groups. All right, next slide. So your effective approaches, right? Everybody's got a different way that they're trying to convince employers that this is the way to solve their hiring needs. Focusing on skills first, right? Even upskilling, they can use who they have. We don't need apprentices to be new hires. They could be somebody that's already at the agency or at the business. that they don't necessarily have to have the degree, that the skills can be something we can train on the job. There's also a way to really focus on the retention, that so many people who've been through an apprenticeship stay with the employer that supported them, right? I think that's the best selling point, even over the ROI. And we can really foster a more diverse workplace. If we can tap into some of the places that employers haven't been looking traditionally, but we as workforce are targeting, I think it's going to be very helpful for them. I had a couple bullets about things that have worked for me. I think it's really nice when you can meet with your ATR, when you have that employer with so many questions. Maybe it's one that asks things that you're not 100% sure on. Rather than go back through emails and different calls, just ask them to join you, right? Nakia Womack is my apprenticeship and training representative with the U.S. Department of Labor, and she has been happy to join me on calls. And it's been really nice because it builds the relationship with them as well, so that when our piece steps out, she can continue to have those conversations, maybe about entering in rapids or whatever they may have questions on. I certainly recommend going to events that support your community-based organization so you can become more familiar with what's available in your area. I talked a little about speaking at chamber events. This can be after hours, it can be the lunch and learn, it can be the virtual morning call, however you can get in there. Just continue to request time on that calendar. And there's many of them in my area, so it's not, I won't be seeing the same employers if I go to different chamber events. Definitely stay active in your board. So your workforce development board will have people that may be on a committee, that may be participating in IWIB or other places that will help you, and they can help with referrals and explain what's going on in all the different areas. I'm talking about youth programs. When we talked about our Office of Education, I really feel like just planting that seed of apprenticeship with youth is going to be what gets us over the line with all these hiring needs. Kids today don't all want to go to college. We've all met plenty of people that are successful without that degree, and apprenticeship is an avenue for that. So I continue to go to job fairs. I love the marketing products that Jennifer was able to get. If anybody hasn't, I don't know if they have any left, but it looks really nice, and it's engaging. I've had a couple people snap the QR code, so it's fun to go show off what you're doing and talk to people about how apprentices can help them. All right, I got through that faster than I thought. I welcome any questions or comments. I haven't looked at the participants yet. If anybody from my team is on the call and they are interested in adding any comments, feel free to take off mute and I'll check our questions in the chat. Yay, Andrew, we have a board member here. Thank you, Andrew.
We have quite a few board members.
Yes, and we have some registered apprenticeship. This is great.
So if you had, I've got a question then. If you, I mean, business engagement's a big deal. I completely agree with you. I think it's probably ultimately the long-term throttle to how many apprenticeships we can get going. If you had a magic wand and you could wave it, what New Year's wish would you make for business engagement?
Ambassadors, more. I love that we have ambassadors with our apprenticeship initiative. I would like employer ambassadors. I would
That's
like,
good.
you know, the Aons and the whoever we have across the state that have mastered this and been so successful to have their own roadshow, or maybe even a video, something we could share with employers as a product, right? That we could say, yes, champions. There you go, Jennifer. Something that really is business to business, speaks how they speak and
So
touches.
kind of like we have for apprentice ambassadors, but employer ambassadors that can go with you to talk to prospective folks.
That would be awesome.
Great idea.
If I could add to that, that was the one of the notions in bringing the youth development practitioner apprenticeship program to Lake County was to create those ambassadors. So now we have 17 apprentices that are soon to be graduates to with employers to be those ambassadors for other youth serving organizations.
Great.
Sarah,
could I? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jordan.
okay. For the business engagement piece, I did a little of that before I started this job uh, with Apprenticeship Illinois. But how important is it to get those in-person meetings versus virtual meetings? Do you find that there's a difference in the reception based on how you're meeting or where you're meeting employers?
Yes and no. I think it really is industry specific. So some smaller businesses that are really hands-on and maybe are working as well, like on the floor, as well as being operating managers, not as important. And if they can carve out time to be in their office, it's okay. I've been a couple places where physically being there, they're pulled away, they're on the call, stuff's happening they can't control, and it's harder to focus. But in general, in person is my preference. And even with those smaller companies, it will happen. So even if the virtual is the first or second, we're going to go there eventually. I love touring and finding out more about what the business does, how they operate. But it's just that personal rapport and relationship. All the programs we've registered, we've had in person, multiple in-person meetings.
Which is the smallest business that we've got a successful registered apprenticeship with at the moment?
I'd say TU Construction. She's in Libertyville. They have an office in Wisconsin, but I don't know how many people there. If I just look at the Libertyville one, it's very small, and they are trying to ramp up. They just don't have enough people like everybody else, right? They've got the business, but not enough people to do all the work.
So you're talking about 10 people or 20 people or something like that?
Less than probably 10.
That's pretty cool that they can get that going. And I think that would be a good example for some people to hear, because you might think, oh, I've only got 10 employees. There's no way I can do this.
Right. Totally agree.
So Sarah, part of doing this series with all of the apprenticeship specialists is to just find out how like the apprenticeship committee or the work-based learning and apprenticeship committee could better support the apprenticeship specialists. So kind of get into what Andrew was talking about, if you could change anything, not necessarily a magic wand, but how could we support you guys better? You did mention the materials. Did you like those materials? Would you like more of them?
I do like the materials. It just looks more professional,
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to have something. I think more one page. I think people have taken what's available and maybe morphed it a little to put their own branding or their own. I think more templates like that we can customize. There's opportunity to just highlight a few things, and it's hard to pick. Apprenticeship.gov has information. Apprenticeship Illinois has information. Everybody kind of has their own one page, I'm just calling it a one pager, but things that you can easily pass to an employer. And then a few of us kind of combine those and made up our own. So it would be nice to have a selection that's kind of stamp approved. You know how you guys have slides or your template for the power, those were really helpful, like when going to chamber and stuff like that, because it's already laid out. I love stuff like that because it saves time, saves us time when we're going out there. But I am not a marketing genius, nor am I, somebody that's good at laying things out. So when I have to move it or combine it, then it might not look as nice as if somebody at the professional level had done it.
Good feedback. Thank you. Yeah, and you're right. You know what? We're inundated with like Workforce GPS and Apprenticeship Professionals Network and Apprenticeship.gov and Apprenticeship Illinois. There's just too much. If we could just curate it a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Sarah, you highlighted some of the successful programs you've registered, as well as some of the challenges you faced in your program development. Can you identify any challenges you faced in registering any of those programs that did get across the finish line and how you were able to overcome them?
Sure. Lots of back and forth with U.S. Department of Labor. So having everything submitted on our end, thinking everything was ready, employers finishing their part, me sending it off, and then not hearing anything. And honestly, it was very frustrating because I felt like I had a really good relationship with Nakia, that my ATR. And at times when there'd be a week or two go by without a response, the only way I got through it was to continue to call. I just kept calling and I kept emailing. It just would not stop, probably 3 a week or something. And a lot of times was somebody above her had to press a button or so, everything just gets clogged, and there's unfortunately a lot of layers in our government. So it's not always as quick as we would like it to be. And I just had to be really transparent with those employers. And when it's out of our hands, it's out of our hands, right? So as soon as we can show them that it's done, then we can move forward. I mean, I think that was my hardest thing, when it's something that because we certainly sell it like we're going to be able to help you get it in, but there's no control over those final steps, right? They have to do part of their process. So I think that was probably the one that I wish I had a direct link to.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. When the going gets tough, the tough keep emailing, right?
That's right. Don't give up.
And then, I think that just highlights how important it is that you are doing the work to, identify those work process templates and occupations ahead of meeting with the employer, so that we don't get bogged down in that development phase. And so everything we do have control over, we're making sure is as expedited and efficient as possible. Absolutely. To account for other steps in the process.
Absolutely. And thank you, Susan. She's just posting in the chat that the Zurich team is happy to be an employer champion. And we are in the process of writing a white paper that will help tell our story. Awesome. From the initial idea to the current state. And that can be a resource for companies working through their own story. Wonderful. Thank you.
I think there was one other comment from Kathy talking about a possible collaboration with Title II. I'm not sure if that was region specific to LWIA 1 or if that's a state across, but if you want to maybe elaborate more on some opportunities that you were thinking to get some people's ideas flowing.
Well, thank you. We have across the state multiple ICAPS programs, which would be kind of a pre-apprenticeship and help individuals step into that space. But in the last year, we have really expanded a lot of our workplace literacy sites. We're at about 28 locations right now. We do have one registered apprenticeship in a food service program with ICAPS being the pre-apprenticeship model, and then the students go into a registered apprenticeship. So I see the wonderful work that's happening here, and I just wanted to say that we are absolutely thrilled to work alongside and in step with you and offer any kind of support, connections, or anything. I see that you guys are doing exceptional work now, but anything we can do collaboratively, I'd be very open for those conversations.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kathy. All right, we're making connections. I appreciate this, everybody. Are there any other questions or comments that you can think of right now? We've got on our last slide our contact information, and it'll certainly be sent out.
Looks like we had one question come in, Sarah.
Jake is asking, do you find organizations are hesitant to engage in apprenticeships due to limitations in time? Absolutely. It's not just time in the development, but it's time and lack of productivity. So once you pull somebody into program, they're not going to be able to carry the same workload that they could before they were in an apprenticeship. It's just focusing on the end, that you may see that time restraint and lack of productivity. Yeah, it may take us a few months to get this whole thing started, but if we look at what's at the end and how that can be a solution for you, that's when it's worth it.
I think that's where your employer ambassadors can really help you, especially if that employer ambassador looks like the company that you're approaching.
Yes.
That if it's 10 employees, that the person you take is not from, respectfully, Zurich Insurance that's got 100,000 employees, and there needs to be somebody that's like 10 to 20 employees, and that's why we've got to have a range of them, right? That you got to pick the right one to bring with you.
I agree.
Because in that kind of organization, the person that owns it probably has 18 different hats that they're wearing.
Yeah. 100%.
One of them is HR.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. My message is keep up the good work, Sarah. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I appreciate your support.
Welcome.
We don't have any other questions. Just a reminder, this will be up on the Apprenticeship Illinois website later this week, along with the slideshow and recording from today. So if you need to revisit this or share this with anyone, the resources will be up there for the future. And we will be continuing this series as well. So if you're not registered for future sessions, you can also go to the website to see the upcoming regions. And we're going to highlight the whole state as the year progresses. So we're excited for all the engagement. And Sarah, thanks again for presenting today. And Happy New Year, everyone.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.